Welcome to an EquiRatings special. Just myself and Sam. It's an exciting day because it's the first day that we're going to go live with a new number. It's called the Suitability Index. And Sam, it does feel momentous to me. I know sometimes when you're coming out of long periods of product creation and number creation, that actually by the time you get to a point where you're willing to bring it public, the energies, you almost need to regather yourself and remind yourself as to why we did it and what we've done and what your team have been working on. And that's where I feel we are. I think this feels to me, from looking at what you've been doing as a new frontier for EquiRatings, the culmination of all of our best work to date and being able to drive that towards one number. Let's introduce people to the Suitability Index, why we use it, what it's for, where it came from. And just before we came on, I mean, what you said to me is this feels like a number that could fly straight away, whether it's from, a totally strategic competitive advantage in horse sales all the way through to para selections in the next couple of months. This is a real value-driven number and something that can give you pretty quick insight. Let's get started. What is it?
In essence, you end up with one number, which has so much clarity to it and simplicity and focus to it, and makes it very useful then, particularly if you were to compare it against, say, the price of a horse, that I can compare, one number against the price of a horse. But it filters out and then weights the information that matters. And then it tells us how much it matters. Okay, so that's the essence of what we're going to discuss here. And I think anyone listening to this, you may have no intention of buying an event horse. You might not be tasked with trying to select teams or do anything like that. You're just interested in sport. And maybe because you're listening to a podcast, you're just interested in information in general. You will be very familiar, if that is you, to knowing that loads of stuff matters. I need to sleep better. I need to mind my nutrition and maybe eat a little bit less sugar and eat, less processed food. I need to exercise more. There's loads of stuff that we know matters and we know we should be doing. But at the end of the day, we go chasing marginal gains. That's kind of the era that we grew up in over a decade ago. It was all marginal gains. And I love margin gains. I see where they work, try and improve all these things a little bit by 1% and you're going to go places. But it can be exhausting and it can be tough. And actually, what we've always been about, because there's always been information, there's always been data in equestrian sports. We've always had access to data. Like EquiRatings wasn't the beginning of that. We were the beginning of creating metrics that matter. So making that useful. We know that not every competition is the same quality. We know that not every course is the same difficulty. So we needed to intelligently weight these results. We know that winning Aachen wasn't the same as winning Ballindennis, say that's my local one, or Liscarvin. So we needed to do all that. So we did that. We created this huge toolbox in jumping and eventing, things like ELOs, things like HPRs, things like expected values, dressage, show jumping, speed, reliability, experience, measure it all. And to be honest, depending on what you're trying to achieve, it probably all matters. There are some instances, though, where some information doesn't matter potentially at all, or as much as you think it does. And that's where suitability score comes in. So it's basically you're in the position of going, I want to achieve something. I need a number that tells me who are the most suitable horses to help me achieve that thing.
Give me an example of information that doesn't matter or might not matter that much. So in a particular scenario, I suppose.
Yeah, you will and okay, I'm being very black and white here, but speed and reliability are way less significant and way less important when you're trying to win a junior medal than dressage, jumping, your ELO, your overall experience, consistency, quality. So that's a good example of it. Whereas when you're trying to win a 5-star, particularly if it's badminton Burghley, speed actually becomes one of the biggest. Speed and dressage become the two most influential metrics, and like speed more than reliability. Whereas we will, and that's where, that's the whole then essence of EquiRatings as well, is we do not want to take anyone's gut instinct and experience away. Anyone who listens to our preview podcast, you'll hear us applying because we're machines in ourselves. The amount of the sport we've watched, we've been we've been involved with, we can't process all that or verbalize all of our information. But we do want to get as much objective insight that we can on the horses, and for that to be as accurate and actionable as possible, and then make our decision based on that. And that's where being able to, so we all know that Badminton and Burghley are going to be, cross country is going to be more influential than, say, a championship. But now we could actually convert that. So, does that mean if London 52 turns up at Burghley, we just discard him because it's Galileo Neamwood because he's faster? Of course it doesn't, because you've got to, of course there's a probably a good chance that London 52 could win Burghley. Is it his best track? No, he's probably going to be better on a championship track. Just finished on a sub 20 at Burnham Market, like ideal conditions for that horse. But we need to be able to weight it. We can't just, like, our brains will always try and make black and white and probably go, well, I'm taking that one because better dressage. No, you've got to be able to weight it all. And that's what the suitability index is.
What does a suitability score look like?
It depends on what you're trying to predict. So when we are trying to predict a 5-star winner, we actually use the HPR as what we're trying to predict. So it will look something like a HPR.
What's a HPR?
That's a high performance rating. That is a number, it goes up to actually 110, and 111 is the highest we've seen. Lordships Graffalo winning Badminton by that wide margin in 2023. And it puts a value on a performance because winning is different. Winning Adelaide is different to winning Badminton, which is different to winning Le Moulin. But winning Badminton one year is also different to winning Badminton another year. If you just try to predict finishing position, you have that problem, the difference in quality from one competition to another. If you just try and predict finishing score, well, winning Badminton in 2023 on a score in the high 30s is very different to winning it in another year where it might be mid to low 20s.
22 London 52s versus London 52, all like sets a new Badminton record low. Graffalo sets a winning margin, but it's, as you say, it's up in the 30s.
Yeah. So, and that's the variability in the sport. So, like, again, you just go, I mean, already you could be like, if your job is to try and now not just like select from 2 horses, Lordships Graffalo or London 52, like already you could be going like, oh God, there's quite a lot of variables to take into account here. What about if you're trying to, there's 8,000 horses out there that we could be buying, as in we could buy one from that pool. And I know some are going to be too old. I know some are just too not good enough. But I mean, there's got to be at least 500 or 600 out there that could potentially do the job. And maybe one of them, might just be much more competitively priced than others. But it's hard if you're trying to do that through a lens of, or through 5 or 6 different lenses. And believe me, all of those metrics matter. So whatever numbers we put in front of clients, they do all matter. But the breakthrough with Suitability Index is to go, we're also going to do the next step for you, which is going to weight all of those numbers. We use a regression model, multivariable, to now be able to rank those horses in order from top to bottom.
I know you don't like surprises, and I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I know from the way you've been talking, or I hope from the way you've been talking, that it's not a total curveball in terms of your episode explainer or plan. But given where we are in the season with Kentucky and Badminton just ahead of us, Kentucky 24 and Badminton 24 just ahead of us, can we imagine that if you want, you could make me a high performance manager, but for the sake of this game, let's make me a buyer. I want to buy a horse that can win me, let's say Badminton, but I'm happy with either. Yeah, and I'll let you decide which one it should be, but I'll give you my general feeling is I want to buy a horse now, Sam. I want to buy a horse that's on the market right now that can win me one of these competitions in the next couple of weeks. Don't worry about the money. I've got backers. I've heard your pod about that suitability score.
Yeah.
Who are the most suitable horses, or what? Like where should I start? Like what's the number? What do you want me to do?
We would look at all of the horses that are currently competing in the sport. You don't want to miss anything. That's so you got to, in the essence of what's EquiRatings bringing to the table? What are we doing that isn't currently being done? What are we going to add? Because I want you, from the person you're describing, you might maybe use the intuition of the person you want to ride this horse. but probably, possibly your own as well. You might have preferences, you might have thoughts and ideas of your own, but you're coming to me because you don't want to go and buy the horse, write the big check, and then a month later be competing at a competition and realize that the rider next door has also just bought a horse a month ago when you were buying a horse. And if you'd known about it, you'd have bloody bought that one. You'd have been, oh, I didn't know I could have had that. And then you find out it was actually cheaper than what you spent. You're like, oh my God, and it was cheaper. So you want to be you want all the objective information. Okay, you might say, well, do you know what? My rider might have sat on it and not like the feeling. My vet might have looked at it and not like the pictures, whatever. Okay, that those other things can all still apply. But as a basis, as the beginning of making the best decision you have ever made in this sport and the most informed decision you've ever made, we're going to put a list together to you. If you want to know exactly what that looks like right now, what I can do is I can take you through the top 10 horses if we just say 5-star generally. The reason I'll do that is because there's not going to be too many surprises. Like what will interest people is probably the ordering and the ranking. But what people are really looking for in terms of, our clients is they know that it's very hard to buy from the top 10 horses in the world right now. And you're actually trying to buy from maybe there's something in there, top 25, top 50, there might be one or two in there, but actually going out to like top 100, maybe going younger and starting to predict further ahead and stuff like that. So there's nothing wrong with going through this list. Lordship's Graffalo tops it. And actually, the gap between Lordship's Graffalo, who's number one, and the horse in number two is the same as the gap between the horse who's number two and the horse that's number 10. So this horse is actually quite out in front, and you'll realize why in a minute, because while I'm not going to tell you what all of the weightings are on each variable, the numbers that matter here are the ELO. It really matters. The 6-run average, which is your dressage average, that really matters. Your show jumping adjustment, which is how much above or below the course average a horse is jumping. So a little bit like golf, you want to be below average. So all of these horses actually are minus. Ballamore Class, who's number 5 on the list, is minus 0.7. The others are all lower. Toledo de Cursor is minus 6.3. He has got by far the best show jumping metric here. And we know that Toledo de Cursor is an exceptional jumper. We know that Ballamore Class is an exceptional horse with 9 top 5s at 5-star, but he's had, or 10 top 5s at 5-star, but he's had a show jumping rail in 9 of those, at least one. So we know it's not his strongest phase, but he's stronger in other phases. So Lordship Graffalo is number 1. My Bomb is number 2, and he's actually like a mark ahead of Graffalo on the 6-run average. There's nothing between My Bomb and Graffalo on the ELO right now, but there is 6 years difference in age. So My Bomb's had a lot more opportunity to build that ELO over a longer period of time. There's not much between them on the jumping either, but it's actually the speed and a little bit the reliability, which is where Graffalo gets ahead.
I don't know what the plan is in terms of publishing the list. The screen that I'm looking at that you've shared with me is showing us, rider name, horse name. So you've got that quite nice view, almost as if it's a page of results, but rather than seeing the dressage score, and it's a filterable page which allows you to play with each of those numbers that you're talking about. So I can I can see the ELOs, I can see the OBPs, I can see risk ratings, I can see all of the different phase metric speed, and then it's pushing it into that single score. But that's almost where I was going at the outset in terms of this new frontier. When ELO launched, we were excited. ELO probably works, I would say, still a little bit better in jumping, or it's more fun in jumping than in eventing because of the frequency at which they jump, and therefore the frequency at which they change. The ELOs change. But something like OBP in eventing really shows form so well. So it shows you who you're beating, or how often or how many competitors, I suppose, you're beating. What I love about this new frontier, as I'm describing it, is that you've pushed them all together into a score. And there's always a risk when you do that something doesn't work. The way you described, if you reduce everything to a single number, like a finishing score, will it still make sense? Because we know that actually it needs to account for the difference in the strength of those 4-star shorts, the difference in the strength of those single competitions year on year, and why we run into trouble. It's amazing when you see the list. The list makes sense. You've just shown me 10 horses here on screen, Sam. And
I'll go. And what you say there is that, like, if we just said, okay, just rank them by the best finishing score, surely that's going to do it. Well, Chipmunk would be top in that case if we did that, and London 52 would be second. As it is, like, it's not a million miles off. Like, it's Lordship's Graffalo 1, then My Bomb, then London 52, then Fisher Chipmunk, then Ballamore Class. But if you had said to me rank by number of like 5-star wins, it would be Ballamore Class and London 52. They both won 3. So, like, you know, My Bomb is only 1. So this is why. Whereas actually, this is just a more intelligent way of doing it. You don't have to limit yourself to basic information that we know has flaws in it, because we know then number 6 on the list, Brookfield Innocent, is a horse who I think has been to 1 5-star and finished second in Poe to London 52, but he went to the Europeans, finished second to JL Dublin. This is a horse who probably hasn't had the opportunities that you'd like to see, but if we can get this horse lining up in a 5-star, he's going to be really competitive. And like, this reminds us, don't forget Brookfield Innocent. Then it's Galileo Neumud, who's a completely different type of horse to the others, and kind of only gets the opportunity to really thrive at Badminton Burghley type competitions. To be honest, I mean, Poe and Kentucky, like, speed is becoming, as horses are getting slower in the sport, speed is like it's probably the most underrated attribute right now, because we've gone from loads of horses being able to make the time. Now, actually, even on good ground, a lot of these horses, time is a factor. But anyway, then we got Galileo Mood, then Toledo de Cursa, then Cappel's Hollow Drift, I think, is also another interesting one, who's kind of been a, you know, championship debut last year for Tom Jackson. I think they had a second at Burghley. I think they certainly had a podium finish at Burghley to get them into the Europeans in 2023. Let's see what 2024 holds for them. But Cappel's Hollow Drift would actually show up as well on our, as a 7-year-old, really ranked high in terms of that predictive metric to go on, be a top level horse as well, in with some really cool horses. Once you start playing with obviously that list has loads of older horses in it. I'll be careful now with what comes up. If I limit to going, okay, the oldest horse I want to consider is a 13-year-old. Okay, Graffalo, Galileo Neumud, and Cappel's Hollow Drift all fit that. But then you're into Chintonic, Isolot, JL Dublin, Mixed Master C. You know, it gets interesting. If I wanted to say, well, do you know what? I don't want a generic 5-star horse. I really want to focus on the championships. So now I'm going to increase the my thresholds in terms of dressage. I'm going to put more emphasis on dressage with my thresholds. Now, we can do that for a suitability score. We could change the algorithm of the suitability score to just go championships and low scoring 5-stars. And we could do the reverse. We could just go for Burghleys and higher scoring Badmintons to try and find the other ones. But you get the idea. This really helps us, because it is so useful, even though we're going to apply a ton of intuition and instinct after this stage. We're gonna bring in the vets. We're gonna be looking at the videos. We're gonna be doing loads of intuitive stuff after this. But isn't it so useful to have 8,000 horses ranked in order of who I should have my eyes on from an objective point of view? Where do you guys think? Give me a starting point. I'll tear that apart afterwards. That's fine. You can do what you like with it. In terms of like arguing with this, I don't really, you know, I'm not an innocent person. I'm not a Brookfield Innocent. I'm not a London 52 person. I'm more the Ballamore Class, Cam, Vonderdeep, Beats type. Okay, you can do all that, but you try and do the first bit. You try and put 6,000 horses in order. That's very hard.
Can I ask you to apply it to any? Could you apply it to an age? Yeah. I mean, where I'm going is you've gone to level, or you've also mentioned. I won't ask you to find me a young horse champion, because I presume that's something that genuinely comes in pretty frequently. So I won't ask you to give away all of it on air. But what if 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds are something that people talk about as fans a lot? Does it work?
Yeah, like this surprised me. So like, because I was skeptical in terms of like a horse at the end of their 7-year-old season, you know, because we always talk about, but will they be but we know that 3-star is a world apart from 5-star. So looking at these 3-star horses as, and as 7-year-olds, I don't think I'm going to get that good a read. I think I need to wait until they're at 8 or 9 to be really making a decision based on data. And this is partly why we have kind of exploded in this horse sales space, is because, we're, and I'm naturally so forgiving, being like, sure, that was just, they make mistakes when they're young, or this, that, and, don't buy a horse just off its records. They've got to look the part, they've got to be the athlete and all this kind of stuff. But as you hear in the film Moneyball, if they're a good hitter, then why don't they hit good? If they're going to be a good scorer and a good performer in the sport, then they should be good scorers and good performers when they're young. So what we did is we looked at horses at the end of their 7-year-old season. I think they've got a lot of metrics associated with them, how much they've run at each level. So how much experience do they have by the end of that year? What are their best HPRs, which is that measurement of performance. So it's like I call our HPRs the stopwatch of eventing. If you were a runner, it's so clear, run the 100 meters in 10 seconds or 9.5 seconds. Where am I now? How do I compare? Am I improving? So easy to get that feedback and so motivational. I want a sub 2-hour marathon. I want a sub 4-minute mile. You get all that. Very hard in eventing, like I say, because the variables that we've gone through with quality and with courses. But the HPR does that. We've got an ELO for a horse by the end of its year. We've got top speed percentages, which is how fast has it been on its fastest runs. So we know that horses aren't always trying to run fast every time. So we just look at their top speed rather than average speed. So we have all these metrics, right? And this horse has this big profile with lots of very interesting numbers. When we convert that to a suitability score, going, okay, now let's look at horses who have gone on to be successful. So we've used over 300,000 results here. We've used over 15 years, over 40,000 horses. Like, there's a lot actually that we've been able to use to do this. And we can build out, we can try and predict who's going to be good. And when we look back on who were the most suitable horses at the end of their 7-year-old year, like the number 2 horse of all time is Fisher Akana, a 3-time 5-star winner. And actually Billy Walk-On, who was top, is going to be that example of going, Billy Walk-On isn't the best event horse we've seen. And yes, he was a better ridden by Pippa Funnel, so good at producing horse. I think he had a really strong Le Lion result as a 7-year-old as well. But still went and finished second, I want to say, in a 5-star, I think second in Bicton. So, I think that's to be fair, I could just give you the highlights. I could just say in the top, if I look in the 99th percentile and above, I can give you names like Fisher Chipmunk, Quimbo of Andrew Nicholson's, who won Kentucky, Fisher Takanu, who won a European Championships as an 8-year-old, Vendredi Beat, who's second at European Championships, Vasily de Lassos, 4th in a World Championships, 3rd in Olympic Games, Philip Dutton Z. I can give you Lordships Graffalo, already
so a 5. These are all horses that came out in the top 1% of the most suitable, like the most
suitable 7-year-olds to go on and be top level horses. So at the end of their 7-year-old year, and I got to Lordships Graffalo, JL Dublin, to the other cursor, are 2 others that I should throw in.
They're in there as well. So you're actually saying, okay, if I'm coming to you now, asking you, show me, let's imagine that it's me 5 years ago or 6 years ago, and I'm saying, I want to see, what do you mean top level horse? You're talking about 5 stars in that case. Are you saying horses that they're in?
We're now trying to, rather than trying to predict like a 5-star HPR, now we're going on to predict ELOs, because these are horses who go on to have a successful top level career. So like the horses I've named have not just been successful once, most of them have been successful multiple times. And that's generally what most people are trying to buy. They're not just trying to, I think the short-term thing is the first instance that we've talked about on this show is like basically saying, look, the Olympics are this year or next year. I need an Olympic horse, or we need to be world number 1, and we need a 2nd or 3rd 5-star horse in the camp, and we need it now. This is much more going, I want a horse that's going to go on and not just be successful once, but be successful multiple times. So we're predicting horses with strong ELOs.
So you really, okay. But it's fascinating. You've just brought up the list on screen, and this is the top 1% of horses. Is that right? That are on my screen now.
Yeah. Because we've got. I mean,
you've called out some big names, but often and they're the ones that you've highlighted. But I'm just looking at the ones you haven't highlighted, pal, and like they're all big names. Like you've got Rincona, who didn't really go through for Michael, but Sealer.
Fisher Akana's sister, and went on and got it. I think won a 4-star as a 7-year-old. So no surprise to see them really high up on the list. I think a good example. Like, yeah, I mean that's the one with all the promise. And I think as a, what if she wasn't a female and with breeding potential and stuff like that? Like maybe it would have been an injury and come back. But like as you say, Sealer Lan is one. Like he's actually 5th on the list. Went to the Olympics for Team GB. And again, you're going to be saying, this is where people are going to divide, being like, oh, well, he never had that big 5-star result, never won a 5-star, didn't do anything like that. I mean, I still think if you'd bought Sealer Lan, you're a happy camper.
Sealer Lan is one of the great. Like Sealer Lan, Sam, I talk about it a lot, but I think Sealer Lan jumped up in Blair. I think it was Blair. I saw Sealer Lan jump.
Persimmon in Blair.
Not at the Europeans. I was actually at multiple Blairs.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was in Blair a long time before. I was in Blair in that period just before, potentially even before EquiRatings, would you believe?
Will you go for the final one? I'm considering.
I think I'll have to because it's actually it's the event. It was one of my, it's been an event that I've loved. But to be honest, I saw Sealer Lan jump in Blair. And it was one of I often talk about it, seeing Armada at badminton at a time as well, where I didn't really it's about the spectacle, Sam. I didn't understand what I was watching, but Armada last to go one Saturday in 2013, I think it was 2013 badminton, and Oliver and Armada were last to go on the Saturday. And like, I don't remember anything other than this is so smooth compared to so much of stuff that I've watched today. This is like a horse that is just flowing and jumping around the track. And again, it just looks so different and so easy. Sealer Lan jumping was the same. Sealer Lan show jumping was a spectacle that I remember at Blair probably over 10 years ago, just from seeing Sealer Lan in a show jumping arena. Pre-Event Rider Masters, pre-Europeans for Katie. I think it was around that time up at Blair.
Kitty's got a few. I mean, what you would do with this information, to be honest, because in this top 1%, you've got Sealer Lan, you've got Crystal Fontaine, you've got Zidante, and you've got Vendredi Beats. Now, they're all Kitty King produced horses, and Vendredi Beats, has gone on to be second at the European Championships. But okay, we know. I mean, it really highlights how good she is at producing young horses. But another person who has a lot of horses on this list would be Ingrid Klimke and Michael Young. You might then say, well, like, they're obviously very good at producing these horses. I'm more interested in who rode this horse, Kappel's Hollow Drift, right? This is because I'm going back to a 7-year-old, but you rewind the clock. What are we going to be? I want to say 6 years, born in 2011, 2018 was the end of his 7-year-old year. You rewind the clock 6 years. And then you're going, okay, up here with all the Kitty King's horses, up in the top 15 horses we've ever seen, with Andrew Nicholson horses, Kitty King horses, Pippa Funnel, Michael Young, Ingrid Klimke, we have this Tom Jackson lad with Kappel's Hollow Drift that we're saying has got massive numbers and a massive profile. Those are the ones you're looking for. And I think that story is still unfolding because, as I say, that's the second time that horse has come up on the show. But that's very interesting. Upsilon was there. Yeah, these are all these top 1% horses. Yeah, it's quite cool. Jalapeno. Oh, and the other one, Chili Night as well. Gemma Tattersall has a couple there.
Can I just ask? I know this. So if I do this now, if you do this now for me,
I can't give you everything. I can't, like, that actually is valuable information. So I'm not.
No, I'm not asking you to actually do it. I'm just saying you can do that now so that you would look at the equivalent of that group of top 1% 7-year-olds. And I know this isn't a horse sales conversation. I want to keep it on the numbers suitability index because we've had the horse sales conversation, but we can have it again. But talk to me about what you say internally when you're coaching and talking to our team about what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve with this stuff. You talk about the top 1% of the top 1%. What do you mean in that regard?
That means that if I can find you using if I can objectively find you using very intelligent feedback and information, so information that matters rather than information that's the whole key to this thing. I mean, okay, to our company, but certainly to this number, is don't just throw more in. There's enough information in the world. Stop throwing numbers at me. Just, I want to tell me what matters here. Tell me what I need to know. Okay. If you do that, if you find me the 1% of horses out there that are most suitable to what I'm trying to achieve, that ends up being about 75 horses. And I will then we have a team that will go off and get videos on all those horses, find out prices and availability of all those horses. Okay, some aren't going to be for sale, some are going to be too big, too small for you and your personal situation, too expensive maybe. Maybe there's something in there you don't like might have had an injury 2 seasons ago, but again, opportunity there as well. Don't look past some of those opportunities. But within those 75 horses, we know there's going to be imperfect. We know there's going to be horses on that maybe you can't buy and maybe you don't want to buy for different reasons. But there's surely one out of the 75, if not 5 or 10, to be honest, that you go, yeah, I could sit on that horse. I could have that horse in my yard. And now I have, and yeah, looks good, feels good. And I have all this information that tells me that this is the top 1% of the horses in the world right now that I should be buying to achieve my goal. I can apply all of my intuition on top of that. Feels like a pretty decent way to make a decision on how to write a check.
Can anybody, so is that the way to access suitability score? Are you going to be talking about it? Are we going to be talking about it? So people like myself and Nicole, are we ever going to see it? Does it show up on any of our lists or is it the reserve of the data science team?
Because I think the power of it. So I definitely think performance managers are going to be looking at this, because that's the same thing, isn't it, for championships and stuff like that, and feeding it back to riders, going, look, in terms of how you compare and stuff like that. Because I know what it's like. If you asked, there's 10 riders in the squad, ask them all to pick their top 3 for Paris, are they all going to agree? No. And then you say, okay, well, they're biased. Take 10 English people, ask them to pick their top 3 for Paris. Are they all going to agree? No, of course they're not, because they're going to weight different things. So what if we had an objective and intelligent center point? We don't have to agree with it. That doesn't have to be our final decision, but that allows people to say, okay, where am I? How do I compare? Where do I need to get to? Really, really useful clarity and focus. Like I say, talk about the stopwatch for runners. A runner can see that they're running the 100 meters in 10 seconds and they know that someone else is running it in 9.5. They will adjust their nutrition. They will improve their recovery strategies. They will push harder on those workouts. They'll do everything they can. They'll do rehab and stretching and all sorts, sleep better, because they know where they are and they know where they need to get to. The barometer for success, or the feedback, or the thing that it isn't an uncertain judgment at the end of the day. Because I could do all that, but then someone might just say, sorry, you're not good enough. I'm going to take the other person. If it just comes down to opinion, that's the problem for human beings. If we know that if I do all this and I get my performance to that level, then I'm in a squad or I'm on a certain level of funding. That's so powerful as a motivator. Certainty for human beings is huge stimulation. So I think it'll come in there.
If someone, people who are listening to the show have gotten to here, is there anything you'd give them in terms of would you publish the top 57-year-olds on suitability score? I don't mean now. I don't mean the current. I mean the all-time one. Is there a way of what do you feel in terms of helping people access it? What's the best thing we could give people who are interested in it, who want to learn the number, feel their way into the number a little bit more? Is there a way yet?
The best way will be to get a feel for it. I think on a few competitions we would, we might do it at Badminton, we might do it at Kentucky.
Okay.
It's a little bit like, now we already have Prediction Center. Now Prediction Center does take in information from athletes as well as horses. And as I say, Prediction Center just gives you the context of the field. Why don't we just use Prediction Center is you can't run millions of simulations of putting all these horses into a badminton. There's 8,000 horses here that you could put into a badminton field. That's just too, and the number would be too crazy. But what are you looking? You're looking to kind of learn. You're looking to, I guess, understand the number and trust it. To be honest, we're early. I've said this loads of times. EquiRatings as a company has been going about 10 years. I don't know when we're going to celebrate our anniversary, but maybe we should. We don't celebrate much. Maybe we should do that. I still feel we are very early.
It's actually it's a year away, just so you know.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, let's get planning. Big party.
Badminton next year, isn't it? Badminton 25.
Weren't you? Oh, badminton 2015 was your first one. Yeah. Because
no, the EquiRatings first one. I was in badminton 2014.
Yeah,
but we didn't start the business until the end of that year, 2014.
Okay, badminton next year we're having a party.
Yeah.
But we had a client for the Rio Olympics, which is 8 years ago. We're still so early in terms of high performance. You know, I think there's been this huge period of managers understanding it, trusting it, getting their head around it. You know, there's a fear, isn't there? There's a fear of going, oh, well, if I have this, can I now not use my judgment? Absolutely not. Like, you know, but I think we're getting more comfortable with that. I think even us saying that publicly 8 years ago, I think even our confidence and understanding and of the whole process and where we were going to fit in was early. But the thing
that you said to me that resonated recently was that there has been such and like, I'm sure, look, people that listen to the EquiRatings eventing podcasts have obviously know how much we talk about numbers. You know, it's a data-driven company. It's a company that loves evidence. Sure, the fun of the podcast has always been about a group of friends discussing the sport, but we've always tried to make sure that the evidence remains part of every preview of every podcast, apart from things like Alphabeti, but it's rare. What you mentioned to me recently was there is a bit of a reticence in the eventing world or the jumping world about numbers sometimes, and what it can feel like is because they've had so many pointless numbers put in front of them for so long, or not, you know, or whether pointless is the wrong word, but numbers which are,
well, it's actually just you're right. If they were pointless, it would be easy. You could just ignore it.
Yeah,
but they're in that area where you go, oh, that makes sense, until one doesn't, you know, until
I mean something like finishing scores. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah,
in that?
Yeah, 100%. You know, you know, oh, I'm gonna if I look at we do something like we've got a power average. That's the average.
Here's an example. We often get asked at the start of a year, will you help us set the criteria for a high performance squad? It's a great way of watching how mayhem can unfold, because you're trying to use 2 or 3 of those numbers in a clever way to create a net that puts some people in and some people out, essentially. But for example, a finishing score.
If we said to an Irish squad, go and give me a sub 40 finishing score at 5-star. It's a good benchmark. Okay. There's a few of them I've done it once or twice. I've definitely done it at WEG, you know, but not doing it. It's a hard thing. It's a hard enough thing to do. It's not always been done. And then Austin goes and finishes 3rd at badminton last year, and it wasn't a sub 40.
Yeah.
You're going,
so it was one of our first badminton podiums in a long, long time. But it wasn't a sub 40. So it doesn't hit the first part of the criteria. And all of a sudden, your criteria now, everyone's looking at your criteria thinking, sure, you have to put Austin in after that. That makes no sense.
I'll give you an interesting piece of information. Austin's 5-star HPRs.
Yeah.
Because he top 10 at badminton the year before.
So just remind people, because I know we talk about them, but just say it again. High performance rating.
High performance rating.
It's the rating we give to a single performance, to a competition performance.
It was the same at badminton 2022 as it was at badminton 2023, as it was for winning Maryland in 2023 as well.
All what?
All a rating of 94. And his Thorsby rating, and I know that's different, 4-star short versus 5-star, that is a one area where we don't try and make the distinction, because again, that is where you intuitively go, okay, do I think this horse will convert well from a 4-star short to a 5-star? It's just like you have a finishing score at a 4-star short or a finishing score of 5-star long. But the HBR from Thorsby, which is, I think, one of the most exciting things for Ireland right now, his result there was a 99. So it was actually 5 marks higher on the HPR. Like, it's one of the best dressage tests we've seen from the horse. He beat world champions, 5-star champions. He did.
Okay, so he was second, wasn't he?
Yeah. I know you love your winner because you've written an article on it.
But isn't it amazing? A 106 rating. And when I tried to take it apart, I tried to take apart the 106 rating because nothing brings me greater joy than being the non-equestrian, non-data person who's like, come on. Like, you're telling me Valmy Beats is after putting up a rating the same as a Bertoni winner. Like, come on now. You're telling me that, and actually I was going through it and I was thinking, right, how am I gonna attack them on this? Wait a second, they're after leading from the front or joint first on a 23.2 dressage. They've delivered the second fastest round of the day, only slower. Only Colorado Blue is faster, and even at that's only by a second. And yes, they weren't all pushing for the time, but it's a pretty good benchmark just in terms of the natural speed coverage. If you're 1 second alongside Colorado Blue, that Valmy Beats is after putting up, plus the jumping. If you can start on a 23 and stay pretty close to Austin O'Connor in terms of the time penalties in a 4-star short, it was a huge moment for me in terms of Valmy Beats and putting that flag in the ground. I know you're seeing it from the Irish point of view and the 99 HPR for Austin in terms of where that sits in Ireland. But for me, in terms of a badminton prep, in terms of a narrative of Emily King at badminton, the disappointment that we've seen from Emily King, maybe I'm bigging it up so it could happen again. But if it doesn't, but who cares? That's like, what is sport if you're not able to go and embrace these things when they happen? A 106 just before badminton, it's an incredible position and an incredible performance that she's put herself in. I wish her nothing but the best now for badminton, but she's delivered something. She's delivered something noteworthy at that 106.
You've also 100% described the problem with equestrian data that we're solving, which is previously we just go, oh, wasn't that a great performance from Emily? But sure, it was just Thorsby and we'll see what she does at badminton. So you kind of have to discard it because you can't validate it. You can't trust it. You can't apply the intelligence that you need. Whereas now you can. Objective and insightful. All of the things that everyone's talking about, measured, analyzed. Put your own secret sauce around it. Put your own intuition, your own team of experts around it as well. Add to it. Of course you can do that, but allow yourself to get 80% of the way, like you've never got there before.
Okay, the Suitability Index. It's the new number. Sam, thanks for making it. Thanks for discussing it. Hopefully we'll all get a chance to see it soon.
Come and buy a horse with us, sales at EquiRatings.com.
Are you going to sign off, Strata?
Well, you open the show.
Sorry, I'm just doing that, don't you? Okay, bye, folks.
Hi, it's Sparkles Watson here. And one of my go-to products from Foreign Equine is the Nutricalm gel. We have a little racehorse who would get worried about traveling and sort of going out and about in different places. So I would always give him one of the syringes because it sort of just helps him focus and stay calm. But then right on the other end of the spectrum, I gave it to Talisman at Burley, and that really helped him take a deep breath and focus, so much so that he was actually able to go in the main arena and contain himself and do a dressage test, which is a really hard thing for him. So this product is fantastic. Like I say, I would use it right from the babies right through to the big ponies, and it's just brilliant at taking the edge off them and making them focus and relaxed.
Welcome to Fairfax and Favour's quick fire questions with none other than Fairfax and Favour Ambassador Piggy March. Piggy, are you ready?
Yes, I think so.
Would you rather be invisible or time travel for a day?
I think I'd like to time travel. I'd like to see what I was like a few years ago or what other people were like.
Okay, so you'd go back in time.
I'd go back in time. I wouldn't want to know going forward.
Okay, fair enough. What's your favourite colour?
Blue of some sort.
Mares or geldings?
You can't beat a good mare, but some geldings can be easier.
Who is your sporting idol? Either eventing or non-eventing related.
Okay, so I used to stalk Mary King, so she can't go without mention. But I'm a real geek, and I just love. There's too many good ones. Pippa Funnell's been such a mentor and idol to me. Marcus Enning is just amazing to watch in the jumping. Carl Hester is just fantastic horseman. There's so many. I've got great mates as well, so I find that quite hard to just pinpoint one when we're surrounded by amazing idols, really.
can you sum up Fairfax and Favour in 3 words for us?
Cool, stylish, and classy.
Everybody needs a bit of class.
Definitely need to try. They do a good job with trying to put some class on me.
They do it very well. Piggy, thank you for taking part in our Fairfax and Favour quickfire questions.
Thank you.